Hi, guys. Welcome back to another Balance Boss Mom podcast episode. I'm your host, Erika, and today's episode is where motherhood meets healing, growth, and real life conversations. As I stated again, I am your host, Erika, and today's episode is incredibly special and deeply important to me, and I'm sure it's going to be important to you, Kiandra. So I'm so excited for you to be here. Today, we're talking about big feelings, brave stories, parenting, mental health, of course, just all of the above conversations that we're going to have this afternoon. So I'm really excited to get into. Our guest, Kiandra, is not only a mother, but an advocate and also a powerful author. So I cannot wait to talk about your book in today's episode. So I'm really excited about that. If you're a mom navigating sensory sensitivity, big emotions, or simply trying to feel seen or heard throughout your parenting journey, this conversation is definitely for you. If you guys have family members that are going through the same thing, please send them your way to this episode so that you guys can hear this today. So, without further ado, I am so honored to welcome today's guest, author, mother, advocate, and creative voice behind the children's book Zaire's Big Feeling About Feeding, the mini book of History Lane, and the poet of Mother's Call, because I love reading books, and my daughter loves reading books, by the way. So, without further ado, Kiandra, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Erika.
Oh, girl, I had to do that long entry for you because, I had to make sure it's long and beautiful. So I'm so
Thank
happy that you're
you.
on this podcast episode with me this afternoon.
I'm
And so
excited.
I'm excited too to get into this because we've been conversating back and forth. And I know behind the scenes, people don't really know what goes on behind the scenes, but I'm so glad that we had a chance to meet. And I'm
Yes.
so also happy for other people to know and share your story with other people on this podcast, of course, and just to share the knowledge about your books and everything that you've done. So let's get into it because I know this is such an important topic, not only for me, but for you. Can you share a little bit about how you started your book with Zaire's Big Feeling About Feeding?
Yes. Honestly, it was never in my plan to write a book. I'm a bookworm. I read all the time. I write. I was one of those kids who enjoyed English classes when I got to write short stories and poems and things like that because I have a very vivid imagination. But it was one of those times where he was in one of those down slopes
Mm-hmm.
of eating. He still had his feeding tube. My mom had been diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer.
Oh.
And I was in my journaling phase and I was just sitting there and I was writing and I had several people tell me, you need to write like a tell all mommy book and tell people what you've been through. And I'm like, as much as I post on social media, I'm sure people are tired of hearing about me advocating for this little boy. And then one night I was writing and I'm very
Mhm.
spiritual. And it's like the Holy Spirit spoke to me and was like, it was never your story to tell, anyways. And I'm like,
Mm.
you're right.
Okay.
It's not my story to tell. And then I was like still journaling and like a week later it was like, why not write the story from his perspective? Because no matter how much you advocate, they're gonna say you're a mom, just
Mm-hmm.
telling what's going on as a mom. But
Mm-hmm.
somebody needs to know how it is from the child's perspective because he's the one that's living it, not you. Even though like I'm a mama and I'm working through it with him, even
Mm-hmm.
as a mom, I don't know what his body goes through from his perspective. And I was like, okay, let's write this children's book where he is the main character and you're seeing his emotions.
Mm-hmm. I like that because you don't often see a lot of children books coming from the mind of a child. We often see what the adult is going through, how the adult manage their feelings, but we never get to see about expressing a child's mental health. And I'm so glad that you are on this podcast and doing this episode with me because not only it gives listeners a chance to understand about the child's mental health, but it also gets a chance to teach that for other parents that their child can also express themselves in a book or, painting or drawing. I know for my daughter, she loves to draw. So that's how she expressed herself with drawing a lot. And I am very, like, not dumbfounded would be the word, but I am very curious sometimes to see what goes on through her mind, which is really
Yes.
interesting.
And
And
I'm the same way. And it shocked me
mm,
that even with him, like, being the main character, and I don't even think that he even knows how big it is because people will say stuff to him, and he's just like, "Okay." But I've had a lot of people tell me that we're from a small town in Arkansas, and they're like, "We didn't even know feeding therapy was a thing." Like, kids actually, like, have to go to therapy to eat? And I'm like, "Yes," and it's not just, like, what you would think of, but there are kids who have, like, these sensory aversions, and they need feeding therapy.
And see, I never knew. I knew a little bit about like the sensory sensitivity and a little bit about eating therapy because like I said, I'm in the insurance side of things. So I see it about mental health therapy and behavioral health therapy and all different types of therapy. So I knew a little bit about it. Um and I thank you for sharing that in reference about how the story began and how your son's journey is unfolding. Were there any challenges throughout the book that you, like, had to overcome with the book, like, so to speak? Like, was it, like, a certain chapter in the book where you felt like, "Right now I have to, like, take a pause and then come right back to" in the book?
There was more so that grieving, that people don't understand that moms with kids who have medical complexities and special needs and parents who parent on the spectrum
Mhm,
go through. And for Zaire, it's not just like his autism,
mhm,
but he was also born with laryngomalacia, which is a deformed windpipe. And
okay.
that played a big role in him not being able to eat either. It was after his, like, second corrective surgery to where he went into shock and he stopped eating, and we stayed in the
Mm.
hospital for a month and came home with a feeding tube, and it was during COVID, so the hospitals were shut
Oh,
down,
yeah, I could
and
imagine COVID played I know
yes,
COVID played a lot of part of a lot of things because restaurants was closing,
yes,
hospitals were closing out of nowhere, and it's even crazy now asking for post-COVID, that these hospitals are now still turning people away
yeah,
and still not helping with, like, the necessities of what a special needs child needs. They're still human beings, and they're still have feelings regardless if you don't think they have, hospitals don't think they have feelings or the way that hospitals need to more advocate for people and I'm
most
right now
definitely.
I'm in the season right now where I'm advocating a lot more for people of color because we're the last one, like I said, on the title pole. We don't get all the resources and the education like other minorities may receive versus what we receive. And so, just with me sharing this story today, I hope that everyone gets a brighter understand about special needs, get a brighter understand about how advocating for a special needs child or helping a special needs parent that may be going through these things. Um, and what do you hope parents feel when they do read Zaire's book? Because I can't wait to share this with my daughter. Like I told her, we're going through this thing where I was teaching her there's different people, different walks of life that you may not understand. You can get up and walk, you know. There's somebody in a wheelchair that can't walk. You can get up and talk. There's somebody that can't talk. So I always been teaching her since she was little that always be nice, always be kind because you never know what somebody is going through. So my question to you would be is what back to the question is what hope do you have when they do read Zaire's book?
I want parents to know that they are not alone, that there is somebody else. And even on those dark days when you feel like you are alone, and
Mhm.
for the children, because my daughter, she's neurotypical. She's my oldest. Never went through any of this with her. For those kids who have stories like Zaire, I want them to know that there are parents who are advocating for them and that their stories are going to be the ones who help others. And for the siblings, cousins, classmates of those kids, you can be an advocate too. It is okay for you to be that kid who stands up and say, they're different to you, but they're not different to me.
Mhm.
I love them the way that they are.
And be nice. Be
Yes.
nice and be kind. You don't have to bully, especially children. I want them to understand that just because somebody is different, you don't have to bully them to make yourself feel better. There's no everybody is has same blood. It's just different blood types.
Mhm.
And you can still be equal and still be nice. You don't have to bully um a kid that has a disability or bully a kid that has special needs because you really honestly can advocate and be their friend. Be nice and just like I said, I taught my daughter, always be nice, always be kind. And it's amazing that you are bringing his story to the forefront, which is a very powerful thing. So I know we talked about the challenges about, yes, it's some of the book, but was there ever a challenge outside of the book for you as a parent?
Being I'm very, very introverted. I tell people all the time, they're like, but you teach and you've done ABA therapy. You can sit me in a room with kids all day long and I'm comfortable. But when you put me in a room full of adults and I have to be, I'm church trained because I'm a church kid. I can get up in front of church and speak. But as far
Mhm.
as just like allowing people into my personal shell and being my vulnerable self,
Mhm.
that was a challenge for me. And I had to get self out of the way and be like, this is for a bigger cause, a bigger mission. It's not about me.
Yeah, and that's something that I think that's very powerful for people to understand, that it's more so about what the child needs. And one of the things I want to get into now that we're staring out of learning about Zaire's book was um, learning about the education behind sensory variations and therapy support. So I really appreciate you sharing Zaire's book on this podcast, because it's not only going to give my daughter an understanding about another different walk of life, but it's going to give other people that listen to this another chance to understand another walk of life. So I do appreciate you bringing that book to the forefront and his story. Because it's educational, it brings awareness to sensory variations therapy and early intervention. And you said is it neurodiversity?
Yes.
Okay. So why is it so important for you to include that layer of education? Can you explain what neurodiversity is and the therapy behind that? I just want to bring that awareness to the listeners.
Yes. When you think about neurodiversity in children and adults who are neurodivergent, it
Mm-hmm.
goes beyond autism because we have started to learn, autism is not a one-way street.
Mm-hmm.
There are different levels of autism, and even just one level is different spectrums of it. It is a whole universe on its own. But neurodivergence goes beyond that. You have your ADHD, your
Mm-hmm.
OCD, and all of those cognitive delays that
Mm-hmm.
are under one umbrella. And when you think about that, you have to understand that it is not per se a mental health disorder, even though it can cause underlying mental health disorders. But those adults and those children, there is a neuro disconnect in their brains to
Okay.
where their bodies function the way that they do, or they have those delays and disconnects. It's not something that they woke up and said, hey, I'm going to stop eating, or hey, I'm just so picky that the clothes itch me and I can't wear this shirt, or
Mm-hmm.
that light and that sound. I just want to be the boss and I don't need you being
That they
like,
don't need the light or the sound or the noise, correct?
yes, it is
Okay.
actually a neurological disconnect that causes these
Mm.
things.
And so I know you mentioned, because I would love to help people that also understand autism as well. So I want to bring that piece to the forefront, because I have some people that I know that may have a child, or is that has a child that is special needs that I know of. And I want to bring awareness about autism. So can you explain a little bit about autism as well?
Yes, autism is a neurodivergent condition. I don't want to call it like a disability because some people
Mhm.
don't see it as a disability. It is a
Yeah.
condition to where the brain functions in a different way, to where children learn differently.
Hmm.
They develop cognitively in
Hmm.
a some at a slower pace, some at a faster pace. And when you think about it, some people think, well, if a child isn't speaking or if
Hmm.
they aren't walking or crawling, then you need to get them assessed for autism. But what people don't understand is that, yes, those are true. And that's where you see kids who are usually diagnosed as a level 2 or a level 3, the highest level of autism. But you
Hmm.
have kids who were speaking very early,
Hmm.
those who were advanced at everything, but they might not be the most social. Or
Okay.
they can sit there and tell you anything about a dinosaur and they were born in 2018, nowhere near prehistoric time, but they can tell you every fun fact that you need to know about a dinosaur, a dead president, or anything like that. Those are signs that you need to look to. They study shapes and numbers and art. They have those high intellectual abilities that the typical human does not have. Those are
Would you
also signs.
would you say it's more like high, because I've heard of this before, high functioning?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, that word, because I was gonna say I've had some things where my daughter was um getting tested for autism because people just automatically thought it was autism. And so I was like, I don't think it's autism. Like me personally, I was like, I don't think it's autism. And so I feel like as an advocate for yourself, while we're speaking on the educational piece about autism and the neurological side of things, what would you say on the advocate side of things, since we're bringing the educational piece into this, about what to do to advocate um, for a child that has like autism? Or if, let's say, for example, somebody just says, okay, well, they're labeled automatically as autism, but they're not really autistic. It could be something else.
Research. And I am always one of those who don't take offense, but I want to know your reasoning why. Like, what research have you done to say
Hmm.
that you think that this adult or this child fits into this box? And also do your own research because I am one of those. I was a GT kid, very gifted, but I'm
Hmm.
also a woman that's a millennial. And back
Hmm.
then they were saying girls couldn't have it. Like,
Hmm.
girls born in the 70s, 80s, and 90s were not diagnosed. They didn't think it was a female thing. But at
Hmm.
30, I was diagnosed with combined ADHD. And I'm like, you know what? It makes sense because there is no way that I could sit there at the age of 7 and come up with these stories out of nowhere and be like, oh my goodness, or just be like as fascinated as I was. And I remember even in middle school, my level of understanding with certain literature should not have been what it was. Because when I look at kids now, I'm like, yeah, I was
We
either
understand
different
this at
or
this.
something that's not right. And
Mhm.
I'm like, it makes sense. So there's
Like, how did
always
you know
that
this at this
research.
age versus somebody that's like your exact age may not really know?
Yes,
For example, Shakespeare will say, like, know the front and back of Shakespeare, but a person that's the same age as you probably be looking like, I don't know what Shakespeare is. Like, what is that? And it's cool to see gifted children like that. It's cool to see um different ideas and different backgrounds. And I also want to include something about the interactive family pages that you have in the book,
mhm.
which I love. So, can you tell us more about how families can use those interactive pages?
Yes, it was something that we took a hold to when I worked in ABA therapy, when I worked one-on-one with kids with autism, and ABA is applied behavioral analysis. But we would use token boards or token economies to where the kids would tell us, and they are very smart, even those who are nonverbal, they can communicate. You know,
Mhm.
some of them, they're going to want snacks or they're going to want their trucks or you know what a kid is, you know
Mm,
what they're motivated by.
motivated by,
And we
yeah.
would take that and be like, okay, if you want 5 to 10 minutes of free time on your tablet or you want this snack, I need you to do this thing. And you have different pages has different numbers of squares.
Hmm.
And you can put like stickers in there, or either the kids love it once they get used to it. They like to put their own stickers or draw their own checks because it
I
makes
love
them
that.
like feel like they are in charge of it.
Hmm.
And you can say, okay, you fill up 5 boxes, you can get that snack, or you can get that truck, or you can get
Hmm.
10 minutes of screen time. And it makes them work. And Zaire's feeding therapist, Miss Kelsey, she would use that. And she would be like, you take 3 bites and we mark off a square. After 3 bites, we can go jump on the trampoline or go play in the ball pit. And he's like, okay. And I have used it for more than feeding therapy for Zaire because also with autism, potty training is a headache. So I'm like, okay, we're going to sit it on the refrigerator or sit one in the bathroom. And I did. I had one taped in the bathroom right in front of his potty. Every time you go potty, you put that Spider-Man sticker or you put that Paw Patrol sticker up there.
You got
And
Spider
once you
Man
get
here.
that, yes.
I like
And
Spider Man.
we can go buy some M&Ms because that is one thing that he will eat. So if you want M&Ms, we need to go potty. And it works for even kids who are not on the spectrum. Because my daughter, she's older, getting to that early preteen age. She likes her
Hmm.
cell phone. She likes
Oh,
her
yeah.
nails done and stuff like that. Clean that room and do your chores. When it's marked off, we can go.
Yeah, I'm about to start doing a whole get a chores list together. Because I was telling my daughter yesterday we were cleaning her room. And I was like, oh, we're getting a chores list together and you gonna mark off one by one and you're gonna let me know.
Yes.
Because I tell her throughout the week, I'm like, okay, if you be good for 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks, I'll give you a surprise. This girl surprised me in 2 weeks and be like, oh, where's my surprise? And I'm like, how did you remember? I was like, I totally forgot, but how did you remember these things? Okay, honey, I don't even remember. And so she'll get like a little surprise. So I like that, especially with, I was telling a friend of mine, I was like, I think you need to start doing potty training with your daughter. And she was like, no, the doctor said that it's not really time for her to do potty train. And I was like, I think you need to start now because if she's taking you to the bathroom herself,
That means she's ready.
she's ready. No, she's not ready. I'm like, you know what? Not my child. I'm gonna I can only share what I know, how to advocate for yourself. And if you think she's not ready, that's perfectly fine. I also want to learn about how the tools to where you don't necessarily offend another parent, like a special needs parent, because I feel like I've advocated for my daughter so much.
Mhm.
So when I get the advice, I'm like, okay, cool. I can try these different things, these different methods that might help. But when I kind of like pass it down, like I said, for my friend, I feel like she gets offended and she starts getting snappy and very territorial. So, what are the tools to kind of like navigate through that? Because it's not like I'm trying to tell the person what to do. I'm just trying to be helpful. So, what would you suggest?
I am now very transparent and I'm an open book. So if I see someone, I share my personal experience before
Hmm.
things, but I also try to read the room. If I feel like they'll get offended,
Hmm.
then I'll just share my experience and I'll ask, hey, like, do you feel like, you would like some advice? Or other than
Hmm.
that, I always say education is uh go to. Knowledge is always going to be the key to anything. So any fun fact that I have read or like some research that some coworkers have shared with me, I have done on my own or some of Zaire's therapists have shared, I'll be like, hey, did you know like Zaire's? And I'm not gonna like make it seem like I'm throwing it on them, but I'll be like, hey,
Hmm.
Zaire's therapist was talking to me one day about this. And did you know that there's a psychiatrist or like another therapist who came up with this type of research? Like, this is where you can find that online.
Yeah, because I never want to feel like I'm offending. I've always want to feel like she can always come to me about certain things and be open. But the more I started kind of like saying, "Hey, I think you need to make sure you read this document. Make sure you don't sign this document very too soon. Make sure you just because I've experienced it for myself." So I feel like I end up kind of offending her, and then I'd be like, you know what, just not say anything. So now I just don't say too much. But on a lighter note, I want to talk about your book number two, which is The History Lane and Honoring Legacy, which
Mhm.
was really cool that I've read about. So you also wrote History Lane, which shifts into honoring your church home, which is the New Mount Zion Baptist Church in Arkansas, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the book feels like a legacy work. So what inspired you to create that project?
That is another funny story. And I tell people I think some of my best work comes when I'm not trying to do work and it's just strictly like if I keep it as a hobby, then it's gonna flourish versus trying to turn it into something that it's not.
Mhm.
And it was last year. We were getting ready for Family and Friends Day at church. And I was asking my grandmother, like, you know what? And knowing the answer, because it was obviously going to be me, like, who's representing for our family? Like, what's it going to be? And I hadn't sung in years. So I
Mhm.
was like, I'm really not trying to get in front of these people and sing when I have not sung in front of people at church in years. So she was like, oh, yeah, your aunt's going to sing, but what are you going to do? And I was like, I'll write a short story or a poem. And when I wrote this poem, and we always celebrate our Family and Friends Day at church during February. And I was like, you know what? Let me see what I want to like dive into. I can do like just something about Black history. And it
Mhm.
done. There are a lot of kids that know Black history, but they know like Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King.
Mhm.
And we're in this small country town in the south of Arkansas with no red light, no Walmart. So people are going to be like, oh, we don't have it. And I had a student to tell me, nobody famous or big comes from Girton. Like, you don't make it from Girton. So I was like, I'm about to change that narrative and tell you, not only did they come from Girton, but these same people watched me and raised me at
Mhm.
school, at church, and everything. So this right here is like true Southwest Arkansas legacy that we come from. And I wanted the children to be like, because some of those people have died, but a few
Mhm.
of them were actually present when I was able to read this, and for them to be there and hear how their stories and
Mhm.
what they did touched me. But for my children and my church kids, and even kids that I work with at school, to be like, wow, I see this lady on Sundays or some random day in the store. I did not know she
Mhm.
was this, or I did not know that man did this. Yes, these are people who are staples in the community and they are still here. So I need you to know what Black history looks like in your community.
And I like that you mentioned you're an open book because that's something that a lot of people are not vulnerable to share when it really comes through speaking your work and speaking how you advocate all the time. Why is it so transparent and important to you, especially for women and mothers to be having like a open space?
I grew up in that to where, and I think most of us millennials can relate to, we grew up to where we were told what to do and
Hmm.
we just did it because in our minds the adults knew best and we weren't allowed to question authority.
That is so true.
And sometimes them telling us what to do either ended up with them beating around the bush or sugarcoating answers when we ask. And I remember being as young as like 10, 11, 12, and I was like, if I can tell you sugarcoating stuff, I lose respect for you because I'm straightforward. Even at that age, I was a straight shooter. And I'm like, I need you to be real with me. And that was just
Mhm.
something that stuck with me. It was like, if I'm going to be real with you, I need you to be real with me. And
Real
I didn't
men.
want the next generation to feel like that.
And I think what's crazy is now that I see like my generation, our generation versus our children now, because can you imagine thinking like 2037, 2047? Like that's insane.
Yes.
With their era, they're like really like tech savvy. I was never, I mean, I'm tech savvy, of course. But for my daughter, I look at her and I'm like, "What? You already know how to work a computer. You already know how to work a phone. You're very tech savvy. We're getting everything towards electronics instead of like what we used to have, paper and pen and cursive even is being taken away."
Yeah.
And it intrigued me because my daughter asked me the other day, she said, Mommy, I want to learn how to do cursive. And I said, Why you want to learn cursive? She said, Because you know how to do cursive. So I want to learn how to do that, which was, it opened my eyes. I was like, they don't know how to do cursive in second grade.
No.
So the fact that my daughter wanted to learn how to do cursive, I was like, wow, times have really changed. And like you stated, I feel like our parents raised us kind of to be like, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. Like you said, very like if we asked the question was kind of beat around the bush versus like, this is how you're gonna grow up in the real world, which was very, I like when you said that, which was very interesting. And so I want to dive back into a little bit more of mental health back into here before we wrap up. Now, you thrived in a lot of conversations with both Zaire's book and with A Mother's Calling, which I really like that. In with History Lane. And I know A Mother's Called is your third book. So, what brought the project to life? What made you to do this, share this out with the world for A Mother's Call?
I was actually not, I won't say I was in my healing phase. I was
Mhm.
getting to enter my healing phase of losing my mom. And I'm one of those, my
Mhm.
sister and
Yeah.
I, we talked about it. There's an age gap between me and my brothers. So I've always
Mhm.
been second mommy to them versus big sister.
Mhm.
And my sister, I've always spoken, I was like, there is like that me feeling left out as the older sibling because I'm the millennial. My mom gave birth to two different generations because she had me as a young teen. So I'm
Uh-huh.
the only millennial of the house. Where my sister, she is like that beginning of Gen Z to where she's like, okay, I watched
Mm.
some of your TV shows and I know your friends. but at the same time, can go hang out with our brothers. And I'm right there.
Oh.
And I'm like, yep. And then there's me who's like mother hen and I'm left out.
Mhm.
But she and I were talking and she's like, I think that's just mama's kids. We distract ourselves. We go get new jobs, go get another degree and say, hey, we healed and we don't heal.
Mhm.
And when she said that, it made me think that, hey, I'm really about to enter in my 20s. Well, leave my 20s, enter in my 30s. And my phone is dried now because my mama's not blowing me up. Like, who am I going to call
Mhm.
when I need to? Somebody got to teach me how to be in my 30s. And it was just that you need that call from mama.
Mhm.
And the ladies who I had to co write, they never saw what I wrote, but it was just like a spirit led thing from like mommies connecting from the heart and from the soul to where everything that I wrote went with
Mhm.
what they wrote. And they are all mother figures. Three of them actually taught me as a kid and are now my coworkers. But to end that last chapter with my grandmother
Mhm.
writing, and that's something that she always wanted to do. And she spoke about losing her mom
Oh,
at an early
wow.
age.
Okay.
And she has experienced losing her mom and then and 24 losing her daughter. So for her to sit
Oh,
there
wow.
and to have that testimony, and she's the matriarch of our family. And I was
Mhm.
like, not only is this me being vulnerable and talking about some things throughout my mental health journey and my spiritual journey that I will need to tackle, but my kids, my siblings' kids will also have this lifelong to where their
They can
great
go back to
grandmother
this.
wrote this and they can hear
Mhm.
some of her story.
Oh, that's awesome. That is beautiful because, like, my grandmother, I don't often I talk about her often, but I try not to talk about her often 'cause I cry. But me and my grandmother were very, very close. And so my grandmother would I go back to this story where when I was living with my grandmother, "You know, grandma, you're gonna live forever. You're gonna be a superhero. You're gonna fly and you're gonna live forever." And so she sat down with me and she had this really long conversation. She was like, "Baby, it's gonna be a time where I'm not gonna be here." And I was like, "No, girl, you're gonna be here. Like, I need I need my grandmother. Like, you're gonna be here." So I kind of correlate and understand where you're coming from with that, like having that testimony to keep like a keepsake to you in your
Yes.
heart, and that way you be able to share with your kids is pretty cool. And so just have a couple more questions here for you. So from your perspective, like I said, you thrive in mental health, parenting, even expressing how to be an advocate. From your perspective, what do you wish more people understood about is it neurodivergence, correct?
Mhm.
Children and mental health in motherhood.
When it comes to the neurodivergent children and even adults,
Mm,
respect them. They are unique, but they are human. They are
mhm,
honestly from the not the mommy, but from the employee side of things. I
mhm,
would always, and it's funny because when I worked in a clinical setting and you see new hires coming through and they're doing their walkthrough, and of course the
mhm.
bosses are always like, okay, give us your feedback. Like, do you think this person is going to fit in? And I will always tell them it's not about what I think. Kids know. And it's something about
Yeah,
kids who are on the spectrum. That sensory
uh-huh.
processing that they have, it makes them stronger. Like, not only do they like have that to where they can smell food or taste it stronger, but their heart beats and their
They know
mind, they can
they
pick
know
up on
energy.
food. Yes. So
They
I
know
would
energy
always
when they sense that.
watch certain kids around those people. And I'm like, and if that kid ain't messing with you, then I need to watch you myself. Or if that kid, if certain kids gravitate towards you, and I know those certain kids can't stand humans, period, then you good. But if they not messing with you, there's some
That
questions.
means there's some questions that I need to answer for myself, which, like I said, it's like having, like a sixth sense. Like they
Yes.
know where I was like, man, why are this baby is clinging so me to like really so much, and it's so weird because every time a baby clings to me, kid you not, I become pregnant. I don't understand what happened. It's like every time I'm like, "Oh my god, the baby is so cute," and the baby be crying, and then I'm like, "Can I hold the baby really quickly?" I'll hold the baby. Baby stops crying. Then a couple weeks later, I'm like 3, 4 weeks pregnant. I'm like, where did this come from? And I'm like,
Yeah.
Lord, please do not give me this right now. That it's more than what I can handle. But then I'm like, you know what? You gave me this for a reason for me to handle it. So it's like I understand about that whole 6 cent thing because
Yes.
I'm like, if a baby don't like you, some ain't right. So
Yes.
I want to close with a few reflective styles questions. So my first question would be, what has motherhood taught you about yourself? My second question would be, what healing looks like for you right now? My third question would be, what legacy do you hope for your words, like your legacy to be left behind? And then my last question would be, what is your word for 2026 to be?
What motherhood has taught me is you never stop learning. Every day is something new, not just with Zaire, but even with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's just like being a mom and having a daughter to where more she grows up, the more you see exactly how you were. And then I have to go back and be like, Lord, I'm sorry. If this was me at 8 and 9, I am sorry. And it shows you how much patience, because I used to be one of those after I had siblings that were a lot younger than me. I
Mm-hmm.
kid you not. I used to tell people, I'm not having kids. I'm not working with kids. I done dealt with my brothers long enough, but it shows you how patient you are and how nurturing you are.
It humbles you very, very
Yes.
well. Very well, so I get it.
Yes. And even as far as a legacy,
Mhm,
I just want my children to thrive and know that they come from greatness and that they are greatness. I always tell them, and even my students, not only do you need to know who you are, but you need to know
mhm,
you are. And I love the fact that I was blessed to come back home and work in a school district here because
mhm.
after having that conversation with some sixth grade students and them saying, we don't see greatness. Like nobody knows about the little small town in Arkansas. First of all, people don't even recognize Arkansas, but for a town that is smaller than 10,000, we're nowhere close to 9,000 people popular. Everybody cousins.
Wow.
We're one of them small towns where everybody is cousins. So for them to be like, okay, what happens here? I'm like, no, you can become greatness. And then be
Mhm.
like, okay, well, this person left and then they blew up versus them being like, you know what? She was on the news. That's my teacher. Wait, she made it. And I'm like, yep,
Mhm.
I'm doing it and I'm teaching you. That means you can be 10 times better than me. And I can't wait to be like, that was my student.
That's awesome. That's
Yes.
awesome. And then, um, what what did healing look like? Like, what does it look like for you?
It is when I can walk in any room and be
Mhm,
at peace and just not think about tomorrow, but just
mhm.
live and go with the flow and say, okay. And when I can talk about my past and feel refreshed, because that was one thing that I struggled with is being able to be vulnerable and not
Mhm,
get choked up or not feel like I'm going to have an anxiety attack. But when I'm just sitting here and I can just go with it. And I think that's why I named my brand Serenity because I'm big on names. My daughter's name is Temperance Moray Audrielle, and that means self control within the flock of God. Zaire name was Zaire is the flow of life. It's a river in Africa, but his middle name, Kincaid, means leader in battle. And these were names that were given to them in the womb. And I didn't know what his story was going to be, but he lived up to his name. And my daughter, her name being one of the fruit of the spirit, I'm always going back to the scripture that a tree, well, you can know a tree by the fruit that it bears. And her name meaning self control. And I named my brand Serenity, which is one of the fruit of the spirit, peace. And to be able to be in serenity and bask
mhm.
and that is like my goal for 26 is to show healing and show peace and embrace it and to be, I guess, as the Gen Z girlies say, in your soft girl era and mean it.
I like that to leave on this note for today. So I want to thank you so much for sharing your heart, sharing your work, sharing your story with me today and with the listeners. The conversation was truly healing and uplifting and powerful and deeply affirming. Knowing, I hope if anyone listens to this feels that they're healed and they're whole. Hi. And If this episode speaks to you, please share it with another mom, a friend, a sister, any relative that you might have. Leave a review, subscribe, because we need to start building a community of healing and balance. Of course, that's why it has the Balance Boss Mom in this podcast. So, before we leave, I want you to tell the listeners where they can find your social medias at so they can locate you and get that book on Zaire's book and get um, the book too that you have, which is History Lane and A Mother's Call.
Yes, I am on Facebook. My personal page is Kiandra Dominique, or you can go to Secrets of Serenity bookstore page on Facebook. It's the same with Instagram. I'm also on TikTok. All the kids love to try to find me on TikTok. It's Kiandra Thompson. On I'm old, I call it Twitter, but it's now X. You can find me at author Kiandra Dominique. My books are on Amazon. You can Google the titles or Google Kiandra Thompson, and you can order them there. If you want signed copies, you can always inbox me, and I can send you
Mhm,
signed copies that way. But
mhm.
yes, you can follow me on all pretty much major platforms and even LinkedIn.
See, I told you, and don't even worry about calling it X. It's still Twitter. They
Yes.
just need to put it back to Twitter. Well, guys, as I say, until next time, remember you are not alone. You are healing in your own journey and you're doing the best you can, and your story does matter. As I stated, please like, comment, and subscribe onto the YouTube channel at the Balanced Boss Mom podcast. Of course, we're all on all streaming platforms, of course. So you just look up the Balanced Boss Mom podcast. Of course, you could find me on the website as well for Balance Boss Mom podcast without the THE. This was refreshing for me. I'm happy we did this. So
So
until
am
next
I.
time, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for checking out today's podcast episode. Bye, guys.